Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. This is a rescheduled meeting from May 13th, 2024. Today is May 20th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Ms. Hersey?
Here.
Ms. Colasetti?
Here.
Ms. Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Wilkin?
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry? Mr. Quisenberry?
Here.
Mayor Marlin?
Here.
Supervisor Chenoweth? Assessor Owana?
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the March 25th, 2024 rescheduled meeting and the April 8th, 2024 meeting. Could we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Chandra, seconded by Mary Alice. Are there any substantial corrections? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Any additions to the agenda? Okay. First item on the addition is presentations and public participation. We'll ask for public participation first. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Township Board? Okay. Move on to the presentation scheduled by Trinity Lewis. It's called The Campaign for Fair Housing, Source of Income Protections in Urbana, Illinois. Trinity is a master's candidate in the UI Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Welcome.
Can I just skip just a few?
Oh, sure.
That's fine. First, I just want to thank Trinity Lewis, who just graduated with her master's degree. She had her graduation this last weekend, so I want to congratulate you, Trinity. She has been with our office for a year, which is longer than a lot of folks are with us. I kept encouraging her to stay, and she chose to have our office as her site for her urban capstone. The focus has been something that our office has worked on for some time. I'm sure the board is aware that we've been running a fair housing campaign for a while. We were involved in helping to pass the source of income protections along with many people across the state. And that really provided, in many ways, it leveled the playing field, even though Urbana has had that law in place for a period of time. Having it statewide, I think, really helps with enforcement. That also allowed us to start working with a statewide coalition of folks working on fair housing and to work with Hope Center for Fair Housing. So this is in our third year of that work. We've held a number of trainings and support, and we really, in this year, wanted to lean in with Trinity. We gave her several different options for her capstone, what she might want to focus on in terms of our organization's needs, and she chose this one. So we've been really focused on the source of income protections at the township level with a specific focus on township participants. So we were kind of doing broad education. We've done landlord education. We've sent things home to Urbana residents through the rental registration program for years. We've had an insert that's included. We've included it in flyers that we've sent out to everyone. So those were very broad tactics. And this time we really wanted to get better understanding of what our participants were facing. And so Trinity has really focused her attention on that piece and really providing direct service and assistance to guide people through that process. So I just wanted to say thank you, Trinity, for all the work and time that you've put in, and I will pass it over to her. She did a poster presentation for her final report, and I also have shared with you in your packet, there was a copy on the back table. I'll put another copy there for folks who would like to see it, but she also has a written report with citations in addition to the poster that she'll go over. So both of us, either of us are happy to answer any questions. I have supervised her capstone throughout this time period, but I will pass it over to Trinity to give her presentation.
Can you?
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry. Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate that. And yes, I've been a part of Cunningham Township for the past year as an intern. And so for my capstone project for my master's in urban planning, I focused on this housing campaign. And we are in particular talking about source of income protections. And I'm going to start to zoom in here. So in the state of Illinois, they in 2023, they have listed source of income as a protected class regarding the Human Rights Act in Illinois, and so what is included in source of income is like housing vouchers, rental assistance, Social Security, TANF, all these things that people may have that are legal. Other legal forms of income that are despite like employer-employee type of income. And so the city of Urbana has had this in their human rights ordinance for a long time now. And so what we wanted to do is to actually look and see if this is actually being enforced amongst the community. So we sent out a survey to our clients at Cunningham to just submit, well, it was part one of our survey dealt with just specifically what type of discrimination people were facing. So we asked if they were voucher holders or non-voucher holders. And then for those who were voucher holders, there were a series of questions of why they could have been denied. The top reasons that voucher holders said that they were denied is that they were told they didn't have enough income, they were showed housing that they weren't interested in, they were advised or told that they don't take vouchers, and they were denied for using a voucher. And then for the non-voucher holders, their top reasons for discrimination were their source of income, their age, their sex, if they have a mental/physical disability, and their student status. And so, and so for who's affected by this, that was part two of our survey that we sent out to get more demographic information on who was affected by this. And so the respondents that reapplied to this survey were, they were all women. They were all majority single women, and those with children, and they come from racially black backgrounds, and they're low-income residents. They were, majority of them also used housing vouchers, and they were above the age of 25, and their education experience was mostly high school/GED, with about a couple that were 2-year college programs. And so we've also been partnering with Hope Fair Housing, organization that's based out of Wheaton, Illinois. And so when we have gotten respondents as well from the survey, we'd send out information regarding who to contact if they have questions about if they are facing discrimination, or how to get that support. And so they're very good at that. They do investigate for free, actually, and they can't actually, if there is like something that they can't necessarily do, they do direct you to other legal sources to do that. And so we've just been sending all of our respondents to the survey to Hope as well, and then we've also connected them to the Urbana Human Relations and Equity Office. So we've connected people with that as well after they apply in our survey. And so, and then for education and outreach, we've been trying to, educate, our residents on what housing discrimination is and if it is happening to them, because most people either don't realize that's what's happening, or they're afraid to come forward. And so we're trying to make a whole campaign based around this. So I've made flyers that talked in particular about the source of income protections. And this describes what a source of income is, and what can and cannot happen under the law. Because since this is a more recent statewide protected class, not many people know about this. And then so the other flyer that we made just talked about general types of discrimination, and in particular in Urbana, and all the rights that are protected under the Urbana Human Rights Ordinance. And we have information on the back of these flyers that lists contact information for Hope and Township, the Land of Lincoln Legal Aid, Human Relations Office, the tenant union, and and then We also specified what details needed to be included in their filing of a complaint, because if most people don't come forward to file these complaints, we don't know what's happening, and also there's no way for people to be held accountable. So we included that information as well. And this is a bus flyer that we have made for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit Department for the buses. And so we contacted them, and so we're going to try to run this ad within the inside of the buses for as long as we can. And the QR code links to our survey, so that if people do see this and they're like, oh, this is something I have faced, they're able to just scan the QR code. And we listed our phone numbers, emails, and websites as well. And oops, oh my gosh, I keep doing that. Yes, so that's what we've been working on. Hope has had connections with local landlords and such here, and I can't necessarily disclose what's happening, but they have been trying to hold other landlords and landlord properties accountable here, and we're partnering with them so that way we can support our residents too and our clients, considering the fact of a lot of our clients have to use housing vouchers. They come to us for rental assistance, general assistance, and there are landlords here that try not to take that, or will still try to evict people in illegal ways or discriminate them from accessing housing in illegal ways. And so to me, also, this also describes how the national trends of people who are discriminated against for housing, as well as mainly Black women with children from low-income neighborhoods. So seeing that just from this little snippet of a survey that we did for Cunningham, to me just kind of reflects what's happening nationally, and which has happened historically as well. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Trinity? Chris?
Thank you. Thank you, Trinity, for the report and the hard work here. You might not be able to answer this, but in your survey, do you have any sense of how much of this is going on in terms of discrimination? Like, I know I'm asking for a number, but you might not have that, but how frequently and how pervasive is this problem of discrimination in Urbana?
From like what we've done, we sent this out. This was client-based from us in particular at first. So I think in total we've had 21 respondents to the survey. And so I think from how many clients that we actually have and actually the size of Urbana, and people who actually want to come forward and know what's happening, I think that is a pretty decent size. I think honestly any number of people facing housing discrimination based on characteristics that you can't control is a problem of itself. So having that problem at all to me is something that we need to work on. But still, to me, with the sample size that we have had, I think that is something that we definitely need to be looking into and watching.
Mary Alice?
Thank you. I appreciated the background in your document. It was really nicely put together, so thank you for that. And congratulations for graduating.
Thank you.
Just to kind of expand a little bit on what Chris's question was, so you had 21 respondents for voucher holders and 7 respondents for non-voucher holders, I believe, with the two numbers.
Oh. Wait, oh, sorry. What
Okay.
you mean for, okay. So for the part 1 of the survey.
Flip it, I think.
It's okay, yeah. It was 11 voucher holders and then 11 non-voucher holders. And then those who responded back, there were 7 that responded back to the demographic questions. And all of those 7, they were all women. There were 5 that were Black women, 2 that were white women. Only a couple didn't have children, but most of them had more than one child, and none of them were students as well, so none of them attended the university, and they all came from low-income backgrounds.
So your population size was 11, is that correct?
Well, 21.
21, sorry,
Sorry.
21 for both. I thought I heard number 11.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
that was 11 was for the people who were voucher holders, and then the other 11 was for non-voucher holders. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. And just, you had mentioned that you can't go into specifics about the landlords with Hope. Have there been any formal lawsuits?
Yes, they're currently in a legal court case right now
In Urbana?
with property companies from Urbana, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Grace.
Thanks again for the presentation, and your report is very lovely. Thank you for sharing that as well. I liked your recommendations, and two that's really stuck out to me that are relevant to us, I think, are the city enforcing fines and things for these violations and having housing testers to kind of go out and really investigate. And that's something that I absolutely, support in future collaboration. And I didn't know if you and or supervisor had any specific recommendations on how to kind of get that ball rolling, or if you're interested in collaborating on some of that.
Oh, yeah, I think, we definitely all need to be collaborating. I think that for us right now, we're just now partnering with Hope, and they're getting the testers and such set up. So I think once we get that officially set up, we can really get the ball rolling. And so not too long ago, Danielle sent out an email blast about people who could sign up to do that. So we'll send out another one and try to also get Hope to try to advertise it as well. And then I feel like once we're able to get even more information and have people file more complaints about what's happening just by filling out the survey or contacting us or Hope or the Human Relations Commission, any of that I think would be the beginning of trying to solve this issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Sharice.
I have a question as well regarding where the landlord enforcement, enforcing the fair housing question. The one question I have is, has there been any outreach or any kind of education or seminars or whatever for the landlords to let them know what they can and what they cannot do?
Yes, we actually just had a fair housing training with Hope, which was opened up to not only our community organizations and city council and all that stuff, but it was also open up to the public and landlords, and there were a couple of landlords that did attend the event. So we do plan on trying to provide not just educational information on for renters, but also for landlords. If there was a way, because I know you guys have a landlord registry as well, so I feel like along with that, some sort of training and information to be set to know what they can and what they cannot do. So we are opening up. We have opened up that option for them as well to attend our meetings.
Okay, one more question I have is regarding enforcement of the fair housing requirements. What is there a form that someone fills out? What are the steps that one would have to go through to say this landlord is discriminating against me or my cousin or whoever? What kind of what are the steps? And if you have that kind of rubric or that kind of some kind of form that can be filled out, where can a tenant or a potential tenant find that information?
Yeah, so
Trinity, is it possible, could I answer this, because we are institutionalizing the work, so I want to tell you what it will look like going forward. So Trinity is we did initial groundwork. We've had other interns work on this issue. Trinity did a focused study on it, and we increased our relationship with Hope Fair Housing. We will have the bus ad that specifically, because Hope and Township have agreed to cross-refer folks so that we can keep track of all of the referrals. The QR code goes to a Township form. So we have now assigned the fair housing work to a staff member, a permanent staff member. So what we would like to see, certainly anyone can call the city. Anyone can call Hope Fair Housing. Anyone can call Township. Those are three places, or you could call Land of Lincoln. Those are all places that folks can call For our advertising, we're sending folks to a survey that we've put together and have refined over the course of this year. You know, we've added different things and made it easier to use. That QR code goes to that survey. That survey then allows us to track all complaints. Sometimes folks have a property maintenance issue. And so we get the survey and we're like, here's how you talk to the city about a property management or property maintenance issue. Sometimes it's more about a conflict with the landlord. We can then send people to Dispute Resolution Institute, or we can send them to the tenant union. So we're wanting to gather the data through that survey and continue that. And we also have a human being who's helping to route folks to the various places that they can go if it appears to be a discrimination issue, which in many cases it was, but not all of the 22 folks who we've surveyed, or 21 folks, not all of them were discrimination situations. The majority were. But essentially, then we can try to route them to the various needs. Oftentimes it ends up they need rental assistance. So we're trying to kind of be, what people should do is they can go to our website, ctso.org. They can fill out the survey, and we will have a staff member reach out to them to help them navigate this issue. But they are also welcome to call Hope Fair Housing or Township. Our numbers are on the ad as part of our collaboration, or the city of Urbana is also a point of contact. So from there, we will kind of take it and try to figure out what's going on so that we can best help people.
Okay, thanks, Danielle.
Any other questions? Mary Alice, could you take the chair? I just had a couple of questions, so I understand.
You want me to recognize you?
Oh, yes, thank you.
The chair recognizes Dana.
Thanks. Just a couple of questions so I understand the data you're presenting. First, there were, you said you had a total of 21 respondents. On the two graphs that you present for the types of discrimination, how many people does that represent? I know you said not all of them had discrimination complaints.
Oh, one was, it's a total of 11 people each.
11 people
Yeah.
each? Okay. Okay. Okay, and the other question is, on the survey, there's one question that you asked, what city did it happen in? So are you presenting only information from people who experienced discrimination from a property located in Urbana? Is it tied to a specific property or a specific property owner who might have property in the city of Urbana?
Well, it definitely ties to property here in Urbana. I mean, not necessarily property that has to be not located either in Urbana, but I mean, in general, like, we want to focus on if they were focusing on the source of income discrimination, which is Urbana-based. But if somebody who did live in Champaign said, oh, I've lived in Champaign and I faced this, I mean, we can still refer them, obviously.
But was that included in your results?
Yeah, I'm looking at the survey results. One person said Champaign, so we sent it to our participants who at some point lived in the township. One person responded that it was a Champaign address. Most responded Urbana, and there were a few that said, I don't remember which city it occurred in.
Okay, okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
But we have been trying to determine, especially if it was a city outside of the state. And we also look at when it happened, because if they're outside of Urbana and it happened before January of, 2023? Do I have that right? Then essentially it potentially was authorized. So we've been trying to zero in on whether or not it's actionable based on the date and based on the location, which is why we asked those two questions.
Okay, thanks.
you
Answer
like
to Sharice's question, the Human Rights and Equity Office here at the city has reached out to every single landlord in the city of Urbana with updated information on source of income discrimination and other things. So they have been in contact with landlords in the city.
Yeah, I would say just to add, I'm a landlord, so I recently received that message from the HRO. We have held within our collaboration within the community, we've held 5 landlord education events in 3 years. in-person education events with multiple landlords. We've sent out, between the city and township, at least 4 notifications to every single person who's registered through rental registration around that. And we did a postcard that went to every single resident. Now, obviously, there could be out-of-town landlords, but that allowed residents to know. I would comfortably say when I started this, I went and spoke to the property management professionals, and I would say they were generally mixed in terms of their awareness around the law and fair housing. I would say it was poor level of knowledge and awareness. There were some that had been around for a while and they were aware. And I don't think I would be very surprised if a landlord would not understand the law at this point, given how much education we've done. So at this point, we're really looking towards the to the tenants to connect them to resources that are effective, responsive, and going to take this to court if it needs to go to court. And I think just to speak to Grace's question, I think right now Hope Fair Housing has money to do testing. They have received CDBG funds from other cities in the state. And that may be something that they are an amazing partner. They were going to be present at the meeting last Monday. They couldn't be today. Tenant Union was also going to be present, and I had some of the folks who had actually submitted to the survey who were going to show up. It happens. We didn't have quorum, so unfortunately you didn't get a chance to hear from them. But I certainly could bring Hope Fair Housing to speak with you all when it's mutually available so that you could discuss that with them. There is a provision to provide fines. We fine people for their grass being too long. We fine them for all kinds of things, for being in West Urbana too many days in a row. And we certainly could fine them for discriminating against people based on fair housing law. So I would strongly encourage, we will be speaking to the Human Relations Commission. We were supposed to meet with them yesterday. They said there were too many things on the docket. And so we will try to meet with them in July, I think is what Trinity will come down from Chicago and meet with them in July. And we'd really like to see some level of local enforcement beyond mediation. And I think mediation is important. It's what Hope does. It's what Carla Boyd does. We like to start with mediation. It's a good approach. But I think that when you see there are landlords in this community who have been mediated many times, and they continue to violate and just assume it's going to go to mediation. And those are good candidates to receive some kind of sanction. And I think the sanction you should look at your fine structure and see what do you think is an appropriate fine for a violation, perhaps a repeated violation, because that's usually what it is, in fair housing. And look and see what you're fining people for other kinds of things, trash left out and parking tickets and all of that, and figure out what you think it would be worth. And I would encourage you to set a fine that would send a message to landlords who are repeat offenders on this issue. That is how things stop in this community, and that is what I think is appropriate at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trinity.
Would you like the chair back?
Yes, I would like the chair.
Okay, it's all yours.
We'll move on to committee to verify bills.
Great. Thank you, Trinity.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to move it over?
Yes.
Okay.
I should be fine.
Let me just supervisor's memo. And Trinity, you're welcome to stay or you can leave. I know you have other things, so you feel free. Either way. So this last month we had $47,237.37 in town fund expenditures. We had $180,062.11 in general assistance expenditures. Our total expenditures for the month were $227,299.48. And I will just say that when I just passed my 7-year anniversary, which was surprising to me, and I looked back and I saw how much assistance dollars were going out per year. It was $96 for the entire year. Last month, it was $227,300. So I am proud of our team. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the bills, and I will give a brief report about the supervisor's memo.
Mary Alice.
I had 2 questions. I'm looking for the other one. What does ETH stand for?
Emergency Transitional Housing.
Okay, all right.
And it is our biggest grant with IDHS, $530,000 grant.
And then my second question, which I cannot seem to find at the moment, had to do with kind of, there was a category like other expenses. And there was two large amounts that I just did not recognize, but I can't seem to find it. I can ask you as a follow-up later.
Yeah. Well, there's a miscellaneous expenses, but there was only $122.
This was in the thousands. A little over, I think a little over 1,000. That's okay, I can follow up with you later.
Okay. Yeah, if you send it to me, I can have our finance director respond to you.
All right, thank you.
Chandra.
I was looking, it says 8 temporarily exempt from work requirements. What would be the reason why? Just curious.
We actually have a lot of folks who are either having surgery or about to have surgery. Or they are about to give birth, or they just recently gave birth. So the 8 who are temporarily exempt are not, they don't have a disabling condition that appears to be long-term, such that they would be on the Social Security track, but they're not able to do service hours at Salt and Light because of a temporary medical issue.
I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the town fund and general assistance fund?
So moved.
Is there a
Second from Grace.
Grace, okay. Those in favor, or will the clerk please call the roll?
Miss Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Miss Hersey,
Yes.
Miss Colasetti,
Yes.
Miss Bishop,
Yes.
Miss Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. Reports of officers.
Great. I just have a couple of things I wanted to mention. But first, I just wanted to thank the mayor for the number of volunteer hours through, not sure what the name is. It's the mayor's, help me out here.
Recognition program?
The Mayor's Recognition Program. We rely heavily on volunteers in our program, and a lot of our partners rely on volunteers, especially our nonprofit volunteers. And so it was really heartening to see it was over $100,000 hours of volunteer service. So I just think that is really remarkable for a community our size. And it's really nice to see high school students participating in volunteer work. So wanted to thank you for that. The spotlight that I had in the supervisor's memo is the digital inclusion campaign. And I have photos, with their permission, I have shared photos of some of the graduates. These are township participants, current and past, who went through a pretty intensive process of learning digital navigation. The trainers received laptops, and the trainees received certification. And we're really excited. We'll be meeting with them in the next couple of weeks to talk about how they could support our office in digital navigation. It's very time-consuming to help people apply for assistance. There's a lot of hand-holding that's needed at times, and so we've launched this program to help support that. So I'm very excited about that. That is done in concert with the Community Data Clinic, and I put some history of our work with them. We've done quite a bit, and I don't know even how much I've reported on it, so I put it all in one place with our various comments. There is a Broadband Ready grant coming down the line, and we're looking to potentially reach out and bring some broadband access dollars in. And I think we have a really solid foundation that we built with the Community Data Clinic to do that. I want to note, basically the moral of the story is that all assistance requests are up. Rental assistance applications went from 22 to 55. Food went up by 20.4% increase. Our free plot program, which is our garden program, I was told when we started this that it was really hard for the park districts to find people to garden. We have 53 plots that are going to be full by end of next week. It's all folks who have Link or SNAP or are immigrant households. That's the qualifications. And we have plots at Martin Center, at Meadowbrook, at Victory Park, at Wood Street, which is owned by the city but leased to the township. We are building more we actually needed to build raised beds at Wood Street because we couldn't accommodate all the requests. So it's a really great news story that we've had. I was actually surprised because when we had 53 plots, I thought we're not going to fill it, but that's fine. We can offer, and we did fill it. So I just want to share that there is a lot of enthusiasm for gardening and growing our own food. Sola Gradia provides the technical assistance to support people in how to grow the food. And we're providing, tools and seeds and seedlings. And we're having these kind of like community events that are trilingual. So we have Spanish and French interpreters, along with them being in English. And all of our orientations are in Spanish, French, and English, unless there's not that language group represented, but almost all of Orchard Downs is the other place. There were quite a few folks who wanted to garden at Orchard Downs, and we just had an orientation in Spanish, French, and English, which is hard to organize, but we did it. So anyway, I wanted to let folks know that that's taking off, and we hope to see a lot more food grown this year. I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any other questions. But I would say we've just been extremely busy. Oh, I will mention, we have for the first time in a while, we have literally homeless families and very medically fragile and vulnerable individuals, unsheltered, fully unsheltered, not couch surfing, it has been difficult to find shelter options for them. Danville's shelter closed, and so Strides is actually experiencing a lot more of a pinch. I just want to point us to some significant concerns going into the heat of the summer. I'm really concerned about the number of people outside. What we've been able to do is, because we had some grant savings from the beginning of the year, it took us a while to ramp up to the number of units. I've been meeting with our team, and we're going to go ahead and take the folks who qualify for our program, who've been sitting on our wait list, and we are going to house them. So we're not taking new folks, just for anyone who's listening, but we are taking the folks that we have actively worked with who are outside. They're in storage units, they're in U-Hauls, they're in cars, and we are going to move them into housing, and we have a plan to do that over the next week. And so that will be a temporary expansion of housing. We're hoping that this is a moment in time, because we haven't, I would say, if you remember, there was a time period 2 Augusts ago where we had a very large number of homeless families, and I kind of rang the bells at that time, and RPC did some expansion, and we did some expansion, and I think OSF did some expansion, and we were able to accommodate, and I feel like this is one of those times. So we're doing what we can to accommodate. We will be able to do it within the budget. I'm not concerned about that, and I basically reallocated some of our street outreach staff to be able to do do the same work that they're doing, but do it in hotel rooms. So that's all I wanted to share. It's not an easy time at Township right now.
Just a slight correction. I would love to have had 100,000 volunteer hours. It was actually 10,000 volunteer hours, but 100 kids. So.
Oh, okay.
Close
enough. Yeah,
We're getting there.
That sums up my memory at this point, but thank you.
We're getting there. Any unfinished business? All right. Under new business, we have a meeting within this meeting of the decennial committee. Pardon?
There's resolution number T-2024-05-02R.
I don't have that on my agenda.
Here.
Oh, it's from last week. It did not exist. It's a lease agreement.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's resolution number T-2024-05-002R, which is a resolution authorizing the township supervisor to execute a lease agreement with the New Lincoln Square LLC for use as space for the township assessor, July 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024.
The short version is we were hoping to have a clear sense of where our permanent home was. We've expanded into the Beckett Law Office on a rental basis, and that is working well for us, and we're pursuing several options at this time. So this is appropriate for us to go ahead and do an extension because their lease will end at the end of June.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number T-2024-05-002R, a resolution authorizing the Township Supervisor to execute a lease agreement with the new Lincoln Square LLC for use as a space for Township Assessor, beginning July 1, 2024 till December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by Sharice. Discussion. James?
Just a quick question. Excuse me. I think the last time we talked about this, there was a sense that that Lincoln Square had other plans, and they were kind of interested, kind of pushing to get us to commit. Is that pressure still on?
Lincoln Square, for us to commit to Lincoln Square?
Yes.
For supervisor's office?
Yeah. No, for assessor's office.
No, I'm not aware of that. I think they're pleased that they understand that this is temporary, and they're pleased that we are extending.
Okay.
And it provides the assessors some stability. If we move, there will be a period of overlap, and so I think it's appropriate to go through December. I'm hoping that we will not have to extend further, but time will tell.
Thank you.
Mary Alice?
Just as a point of information, it looks like this has not raised, the rent hasn't raised in quite a while. So we're extending it, but it's the same amount.
Yeah.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. And now we'll move to item B, which is the decennial committee. I'd like to call the meeting of the decennial committee to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Carol Elliott, Michelle Jett, Danielle Chenoweth,
Present.
Ivana Owana.
Next item on this committee meeting is public input. If anyone wishes to address the decennial committee, please step up to the microphone. Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the Champaign County Township's comprehensive report and recommendations for delivery to the Champaign County Executive and Board. Do we have a presentation on this, or?
Yeah, so Ethan Garcia has been with us also for almost a year. Is that correct? Okay, we got lucky. He also just graduated from with his master's degree in urban and regional planning. So congratulations, Ethan. We had 2 graduates recently. Very exciting. He has been, I asked him if he would be interested in doing what I would consider a pretty nerdy project, which is to study all of the townships in the county. And he was up for the task. And I explained that he might get yelled at by supervisors throughout the township, and he said he was up to the task. Actually, it didn't happen very often. Because we had so much time to work on this, frankly, I think that we've been very gentle with the townships, understanding that many of them are part-time. Ethan will go over the process, but it's been many months of reaching out and gently encouraging people to provide information. And then after about 4 or 5 months of that, FOIAing the information, and we were able to get all of the townships to respond but one, which is pretty great. So 29 townships responded. You have seen this report in its initial form, and we're able to give feedback. It has changed, especially we didn't really have recommendations nailed down. We kind of wanted to show you what we had last time, and so this time we have some specific recommendations. And we spent the time between the last meeting and this meeting. Ethan really dived into the financial reports that we received from the county clerk's office. So there is you can actually go into the folder. It's public information, but go into the folder and see all of those reports. I think Darcy helped to get access to some of that. And actually, just want to acknowledge that the first township report was actually done by Darcy when she was in our office. So we learned a lot from that process. So you'll see in this report some deeper dive in terms of the financial pieces. It is interesting. I will put it that I will not give away the punchline, but I'd like to invite Ethan to present his work, and then happy to take any questions. What we're looking for is a recommendation to send this to the county. We'd like to present it to the county board and the county executive. I've let them know that it's coming. So just, and you know, you're the decennial committee, so you might have additional recommendations or changes you'd like to see. That's why it says draft, because it's a draft until you've confirmed it. So feel free if there are things that you think that we should mention when we talk to the county. We would like your input on it, and this includes Carol. And Carol, since you don't have a microphone, you're certainly welcome to come sit either here or here if that is a little bit easier so that you can participate in the conversation. So you don't have to yell, exactly. So
People can hear you at home.
whatever you prefer, whether it is at the public input or here at the with the town board. Then I just want to thank Carol Elliott for her service on the, she shared a couple of ideas and thoughts with us, and she is the former supervisor in the position, and I certainly learned things from when I was a trustee, and she was the supervisor, so thank you for your service.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me again. I'm sort of running just on Dayquil and caffeine, so please bear with me if I take a minute to go through things. But I'm going to quickly go through the background again because I think we have a couple new faces who weren't here last time. And so obviously you guys know the project background, and the whole reason we have the decennial committee is because of Public Act 102, 1088, and through that we wanted to help townships establish some goals countywide to aid in collaboration and further programming for all residents in the county. At least that was our goal through the decennial committee. And so our overarching goals included serving all the townships in the county, publishing this information online so that any resident in the counties or the townships themselves can review it, comparing data and trends, and making recommendations, one directly to townships and overall for the county. So the decennial committee was created in June of 2023, and since then I was brought in October, and I did my initial pitch to you guys back in November, and since then I got right into the outreach that Danielle was speaking about, which was interesting. It was definitely hard to get people to respond because most people just ignored my emails or did not answer the phone because there was not a very public phone number available to me online when I did my research, or they just weren't answering. And some of them I was able to leave messages, and others I couldn't. And I barely got calls back. As you can see, the mailed survey, I only got 7 responses, and then the online version, which I made for a bit easier so people didn't have to go out of their way to mail it if that was an issue. I only got 1 response to that. And so after taking more time to confirm emails and phone numbers by reaching out to the county board to see information they had, or just going back with Danielle and other colleagues that might have information on township contacts, I was then following the township that still hadn't replied. I gave them another chance where I emailed everyone one last time with these updated emails and updated phone calls and with updated numbers, and they still didn't reply. And so since then, we've had a couple more people respond since the last time I presented to you in March, and we've kind of been going toward whatever our final presentation of all this information is going to be, because that's kind of why we're here, that we want the clearest vision of what you guys think would be most efficient to, one, help residents and help the townships countywide, because everyone has different needs and preferences for how they want to access data and resources. This is, again, just general background on what a township is, where everywhere except Chicago has one, and they're mandated by the state to provide general assistance assessment of real property for the basis of taxation, and maintaining roads and bridges that are outside of city jurisdictions. And so the big overarching one that every township has to do, because Cunningham doesn't have to do roads and bridges because we're within cities that do that for us. We are a little bit lucky in that front, but a bunch of the other townships in the county do have to handle those services. So we did take that into account when analyzing their general assistance programs, because we understand they have other things they have to do. This is just a map of all the townships. And we really wanted to stress that poverty, rent burden, and people with disabilities are a countywide phenomenon, if you want to call that, or an issue, because I think a big common argument we see for why other townships feel like they don't have to go to the office every day, or they don't have to try harder, quote unquote, to promote their services, because they think that they're not as big as like Cunningham or Urbana or City of Champaign, and that these needs aren't as needed because they have much smaller populations and not as much of an influx of people in and out. So they don't see poverty, rent burden, and disabilities as pressing as an issue. But when you look at the stats, such as that 47% of county household are renters, which is countywide, not just within Urbana and Champaign, it's a bit telling where these issues breach beyond the city limits of Urbana and Champaign, which, again, the narrative is often that these townships don't feel like these issues are relevant to them, but they are. And these are just a bit more of the stats that we found that were all public information from the Champaign County Mental Health Board, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and SSI participation from the SSA website. This is a better visual of how poverty in Champaign has risen in the last 20 years, and has, again, this is countywide, it's not just for Champaign or Urbana, the cities, this is for the Champaign County. And while it was a bit dipping, we can see that there is potential for a rise, as it has risen a bit since between 2020 and 2022. And again, this is to reiterate the fact of another visual to show that poverty is not just within Champaign and Urbana. It's within the entire county. And similarly, the amount of people that receive SSI payments, which are people with disabilities aid, whether it's because they can't work or because they just need help in their lives, like another type of assistance through the federal government, is about 943 a month throughout the county. And this is another map that shows that there are actually a lot of people, especially in the northern end of the county, that receive these benefits. And again, this is to stress that these numbers are going up as the years have gone on. The most recent data only goes to 2018, but I think it's still relevant to show that there has been a 21% increase of residents receiving SSIs in the last 10 years. Again, to reiterate the importance of general assistance is pretty often for people last resort, because we have set procedures where you have to go through the federal government and try a bunch of other GA and emergency assistance routes before coming to us, and we still have a bunch of rules that people have to adhere to, like Daniel was saying earlier, where people typically do have to be with the job, they have to have housing usually in place already, and we are more so just an aid in that. When we can, we do try to house people ourselves, but we are alone, I believe, in that task in township in the county, and we. Oh, sorry, I got off my train of thought. And we have been. Sorry, I really lost my train of thought. Sorry. Okay, GA and EA are. I guess the distinguish between them is GA typically is for housing. I'm sorry, I really lost my train of thought. Give me a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
If the difference between GA and EA is GA is required by state law, and it's income support. whether that be through cash like we do or vouchers, which some other townships do. Emergency assistance is optional, and that really is what covers our rental assistance. Could also be utility assistance or other forms of assistance, and it's encouraged at the level of the township, but it's not required. But it's very clearly defined that townships that say have surpluses, and we'll see that in a minute when we get to the financials, is very clearly the case that, you know, they could participate in emergency assistance if they're interested in using their surplus in that way.
Yeah, and the last point here is that every township does collect GA budgets or taxes that go toward, that are supposed to be going toward GA services. So that is another issue that, again, that's state mandated. And when I looked at the financial, which I'll go into a bit more, most townships do have those, even if the budgets are not being used. And then this was information we got directly from the executive director of the township officials of Illinois, were that if a township is found to be withholding funds or not making these services accessible, there can be a lawsuit filed, which we're not sure we're going to do that, but that is an option, whether from us or from residents. And then this is an overall summary. It is mostly the same from when I presented back in March, except that Ogden has since reached out. Ogden Township and Philo did not complete the survey, but they did reach out to Danielle personally and asked for support in administering their GA services. And Hardwood is a township that still has not replied at all, so we're not sure what they're doing. But overall, from what we found, which is still relevant for Hardwood because we cannot find this information online for them, there are 5 townships with websites. There are 8 townships with consistent set office hours, which typically goes in hand with, I don't think more than 8 have an actual office. A lot of the townships tend to meet out of the supervisor's house. So when I was asking for an address that I could potentially give to their constituent that need aid, the supervisor tended to say, don't give out my address, which makes sense, but it also makes the process difficult because if people don't have access to the internet or a phone, it's kind of hard to find these services. With at least we get a lot of walk-ins all the time at Cunningham, so I'm sure that would be necessary throughout the county. And then there were 17 townships that provided 0 assistance last year based on the numbers we saw online, or they told us straightforward that they didn't have any clients last year. And 4 claim not to operate GA, which include Conduit, Hensley, Newcomb, and Stanton, which is illegal, as I said earlier. And then this links to other data, which you should all have this in your email if you want to delve deeper into the spreadsheet of the GA applications. We did ask for the townships to send a copy of their application. Not all of them did, which was another issue we had with the survey, that a lot of townships took it upon themselves to answer only the question they wanted to answer, which made this a bit difficult. We had to go out of our way, especially for the financials. Most of them just said, the information's online, look at it yourself. So that's what I did. And yeah. So this is, again, going deeper into the results. These are the amount of clients, not including Cunningham, which is TSO, or the City of Champaign Township, COCT. And Tolono says they have 77 clients, which is the most out of all the other townships, not including CTSO and COCT. But as I'll go into a bit later, there is a bit of discrepancies in that number. I can't support any of these numbers because this is not public information. These are all the numbers they directly gave me, so I can't necessarily verify if any of these numbers are real, but these are all explicit numbers that we got from the townships that we have evidence that this is what they claim the amount of clients they served last year, which obviously these are very low numbers. And I'll go into CTSOs and COCT's numbers later. And this is going over a bunch of the budgets information that we found. We really wanted to single out the budgets they have planned in their annual budget, the amount of tax levies they collect from their taxpayers, the beginning balance, because we also want to make note of the amount of wealth hoarding, essentially, that the township do, because I know Daniel had mentioned to me that I'm pretty sure there is also a law that says the amount of budget you're allowed to keep. You can't necessarily just keep your budgets every year forever. That's not how government budgets work. And And there is their budgets for personnel, which a lot of them still have budgets for personnel, even though they have no clients, which is very interesting. And then again, the budget they have specifically allocated for direct assistance, which some have zero. These are all the township that said they have assistance, but then they didn't spend any on their GA services because they didn't have clients. And then these are the township that that they did not. They said they didn't have any.
Yeah.
Yes, no assistance. Yes.
This is the no assistance.
Yes.
We started with the good news and then we went to the bad.
Yes, these are the township with no assistance according to them, or just not finding them having to have clients or budgets allocated for it. Which, if you look at the budget direct assistance, you can see there's a lot of zeros there, and a lot of them still collect levies for it, even though there are also some that don't do that, which again is illegal because that's one of their 3 mandated responsibilities. And then these are the cases we have for CTSO, COCT, and then the Champaign Regional Planning Commission, who all operate through the Consultorium, which is a service that aids in providing rental assistance, which is open countywide, which is, when we go later, that's one of our recommendations that township that want help in providing their services, which was a question we asked in our survey too, which a lot said no, they didn't want help, even though they don't have any active clients or any promotion of their services, so that was a bit interesting. And again, this is also a service that if they don't want to collaborate with each other, this is an external entity that could help with that we utilize. And as you can see, we're the 3 town or assistant providing entities that provide the most clients. And I think COCT has the most. Yes. Again, then this is just the overall services that all the townships provide. Again, Cunningham is a bit lucky that we don't have to provide some of the road management or cemetery management that these other townships provide, even though they're, at least for the cemetery and these other social services, they're technically not, they don't have to provide them, but we understand if it's a community need, they do what their community wants. But we still want to stress that despite that, they still have to be able to provide all the GA service that a lot of them still are collecting levies for, and they're just sitting in a bank account, not going anywhere. And again, we wanted to stress that we are a township that has a lot of collaboration with external entities to help us with their various services. As Danielle was going through earlier, all the people we partner with, one of which is a consultorium. And so that our biggest remaining question is, of course, Hardwood, as they didn't reply to us whatsoever. We have not heard from them at all. The multi-township between Condit, Newcomb, and Stanton, they all claim to not have a GA program, but East Bend, which is a part of this multi-township, says they do, so there's a bit of a contradiction there. And then Tolono, Mahomet, Rancho, and Urbana, there are a bit of discrepancies in their annual taxes, the amount of budget spent on services, their beginning balances, and the number of clients they have. I won't go into the specifics of them because we don't really want to single out townships, but there are just some interesting discrepancies when you look at all the numbers where it doesn't seem like the budgets are being used in the way that they're saying, especially when there are no clients. What are the services being, what are the administrative services doing if there's no clients? And then this is just the data. If you went in your email, if you want to delve deeper into the spreadsheet that we have, Danielle, I think cleaned it up for you guys to look nice. I kind of had a mess, sorry. And then overall, the 30 townships are minus to $7,444,400 in budgets allocated to GA, according to the fiscal year 2023 and 2024 budget reports. And then there are more than $820,000 spent on admin personnel countywide, which again, for some of the counties that don't have clients, we just want a bit more clarity what their day-to-day routine might look like if they don't have clients or if they don't even have an office. How does that work? Or an open phone call or an open phone number. And then collectively, all 30 townships have spent about $1,500,000 on direct assistance. And then this is where we want the newest part of this presentation is the recommendations. We are going to share this to the other, to the county officials one and to all the other supervisors and state representatives, Senator Faraci, the township officials of Illinois. And we want this report to be accessible online to the public as well, because we think that this is all relevant information and people should know what their township does and doesn't do, because we can only hold them accountable so much, because this is mostly all public information or information they willingly gave us. So there's not necessarily foul play happening. We are just sharing information that was told to us, which was a part of the participation of the survey. We indicated that this information would be shared, where so far the only thing that, again, was told to me was addresses and phone numbers that supervisors didn't want shared, which is, of course, okay. And then we want to address that GA needs to be provided in every township, especially for the townships that say they don't have one, or for the townships that are not collecting levies for them. Because, again, that is mandated by the law, and what other programs people have going on in their township, they still need to include GA, especially when there are being taxes collected by it that your residents are paying for. And then we think that township would best utilize these services and potentially collaborate with each other, whether it's forming another multi-township as Conduit, the Conduit and Newcomb example had, or we think that we might need to even FOIA these townships again, because there's a bunch of information that, again, they didn't respond to, especially for the townships that were responding to my FOIA. They still left some questions blank, or they just did not answer it. They did not fulfill our request, or they tried to point us to online services that didn't provide clarity on things, especially in terms of clients and their financials. This is more recommendations where we think that the residents who are unable to apply for assistance, which again, this is something that we want to promote in our final version of this report, where we want people to know that if they are unable to receive services, that they should appeal to the Public Aids Appeal Committee, which should be a proactive service to kind of hold these townships accountable. Again, we can only do so much as an external township, but residents do have a lot of power in holding their township accountable. And I think there needs to be a better way to acknowledge and collect data on if there are a bunch of people who are looking for these services and are not provided. We're not sure how to do that, but that's one of our ideas. And we think the Champaign County Rental Assistance Consultorium should reach out directly to all the supervisors of these townships to invite them, even though we already recommended that these townships should do that, and most of them still said no. We still think that that's a resource they should utilize. And that we think that Champaign County should play a role in educating the public. Again, through this report, we want all this information to be public, and we need it to be an accessible way for everyone, especially in the more rural townships. We want to ensure that there are both online and physical copies for people in case there is no, again, if there are people who are homeless who don't have access to the internet, how are they going to know this information? And again, we want to reiterate that we do want an online presence for all these townships. We think the baseline that they should have is a website, active phone number that residents can call on specific set hours, and even if they can allocate an office space or a meeting place, whether it's their local city hall or township hall, that is open for the public to come in for walk-ins if that is needed. Because again, we think based on our own township, all these services are only, I think, so utilized because we have an open door policy. We have very present online. We're very present online, and we promote our services at a bunch of local events as well. And we think that every township should take their resources and better utilize them to better promote themselves and actually adhere to the set hours and services that they're supposed to provide.
Can I ask a question? Is this on? Yeah. Yes. When you were doing this, did you get information about the population of the individual townships? I ask that because I know that for some of the rural areas, there might not be a lot of people who would be eligible for general assistance. Just growing up in a farming community, you know, there might be 1 or 2 houses or something within a township. The other question I had, or would like to point out, that if a township had a 0 amount in their levy, they won't be able to up that levy at all because of the tax caps that were in effect in, was that 96 or before that? But because you can't increase by a percentage of 0, so there would be some suggestions to help them figure out what to do if they did want to spend more GA money, or if it wasn't quite at 0, it would be tough for them to increase it exponentially each levy year.
To answer your first question, I didn't mention it, but I do have population information that we just directly pulled from the census. It is on our spreadsheet if you go into one of the links we have in the later slides. And I think, again, going back to the point about that these services are supposed to be provided no matter what, even if the township somehow does not have people that need it for whatever reason, which frankly, I feel like there probably is people that probably need it eventually. And the whole point is that these services need to already be established. It shouldn't be a scramble to allocate the funds to figure out how to do GA, because it seems like these townships that don't have personnel dedicated toward it don't know how to even execute their GA services. And we want to ensure that there is actual validation and that there's no one who's looking for these services, because since there's no way to contact these townships, there's basically no way to prove that no one's looking for these services. So I think, and again, there are a bunch of the more prominent townships like Urbana and Rancho that we know there are people that want these services, because we get calls from them all the time that they want them. And we still, and even though we have specific townships that we know there are these people, we can't say that there aren't in certain townships. And we need to universally hold all the townships accountable, because we also don't want to single out certain townships and say they have to do more because they're a bigger township, or they're more likely to have people financially struggling, because we can't prove that.
I understand that. Just passing along some information.
And I'm not for the tax levy. I'm not exactly sure about that, because I'm not sure how you would amend that. And I think I say that in our recommendation. We're not exactly sure how to address that. Me and Danielle have talked about that. But either way, like I said, it's still state mandated. I think there's a very one specific loophole you can get out of it, and that is essentially passing a bill. And as far as we know, there's no bill that exists that says that either these funds can be transferred to something else, or that these funds don't need to exist at all. Which typically, I think from what I saw at the Illinois law, the most common thing is reallocating those funds, but you have to do that with legislation. And none of these townships said they've done that.
City of Champaign was sued because they zeroed out their levy. And they were sued through a class action suit with Land of Lincoln, and they were required to increase their levy. So that would be, I don't know what I'm not a lawyer, so I think we're providing this to the township officials of Illinois who have lawyers, and they may want to provide some guidance on that.
I think, Grace, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. On one of your slides, maybe a little more in forward progression, is there, it talks about the money, about $7.4 million. Yes, this one. Okay, in budgets. And just looking at that, does that mean that there's like $5 million missing between what's budgeted and what's allocated here?
I think the budgets include their administration as well. It's just the overall, like it's set for, it's their GA town fund essentially, and this is the 1 million is like directly spent on aid directly.
Yeah, but then adding that 800,000 sum for admin and personnel still gives about $5 million short of that 7.4.
But again, I believe that a lot of these are their held budgets as well are included. A lot of them have like $300,000+ that are just sitting in their bank accounts. And again, me and Danielle haven't delved into it too deeply, but we're pretty sure that is also illegal.
Okay, so just sitting there, kind of building up, rolling
Yes.
over. I see.
Yes.
Mary Alice and then James.
So thank you very much for putting this together. It's very interesting. I was wondering, you said 28 of the townships out of the 30 do highway in their budget, right? And so that's basically everybody but Champaign and Cunningham.
City of Champaign, yes.
Okay, City of
Because we have
Champaign.
City of Champaign and then Champaign Township. Very
City-
confusing.
It is very confusing. We have Urbana Township as well, but we have Cunningham. So my question is, did you look to see, and I just started going through some of the budget stuff here, what proportion do the other townships spend specifically on highway?
Again, that was also a discrepancy I was finding too, is that there are a lot of the way I came up with that 28 township technically do have some sort of involvement with road and highways because they do have a highway commissioner, but I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure there were a couple that don't necessarily have a budget in place or like specific tasks they have to do besides review and like admin. So I think that is also something I could elaborate more on in my research.
So when we looked at the budget for the different townships, and there's a note on Cunningham that says it includes grants, I'm assuming that the rest, if they had grants, would also be in that amount?
Yeah, and so the town fund is where all of the highway and bricks and mortar would be under the town fund. And most of, when you look at the financial analysis, my request was just to analyze the general assistance budget. So we were looking at, now the personnel admin budget may cross because some folks will, so that's the one I want to indicate, and this responds a little bit to like why it doesn't add up. It's, we wanted to kind of give you a sense of what the direct assistance amount was, what the overall, which is all general assistance, what personnel is, which sometimes bridges between town fund and GA, and then the general assistance budget. But we did not analyze the town fund budgets because we're looking at assistance for the poor as the focus of this research.
I think you answered this question as you've been answering other questions. It sounds to me like the only way to enforce compliance with the law is to have a lawsuit of some kind. Is that, or can something be done at the state level without a lawsuit?
So the recommendation that we had was that that we'll be presenting to our representative and senator is to basically have some level of sanction around the non-provision of general assistance. So is the last bullet point in the, so I think that there's pressure, which is, I think, yeah, I would just call it common sense. Like, hey, you're bringing in money for a thing, but you're not spending it on the thing. And so the public should be informed and they can do something about it because they're the voters, right? So, I mean, that happened between the last supervisor and here. The supervisor cut the rolls from 175 people to 26 in 4 years. Which is unprecedented since we had lower assistance rates than the early 80s. So there was a change in leadership. So I think the voters can make a decision about whether or not they want to have a change in leadership, but they need information to be able to do that. And they may not have time and to look at it. So I think there's, it's a democratic process. People can choose a change in leadership. They can, the public can be aware of it, and that leadership can make a different choice about how they're managing funds. They can be sued by a resident, and the county or one of the larger townships could provide assistance for that, or the Land of Lincoln could provide assistance. I have spoken with township supervisors in the metro area who have dealt with similar issues where they are dealing with the pressure of so many townships not providing assistance and everyone's coming to them. And that's where this came from, is actually the one slide we didn't finish, but I want to add is our referrals. So we're not done pulling the data, but we have collected referrals to other townships. And it's a large number of town folks who have come to us. And it takes a lot of time for us to provide those referrals. And then people come back to us to say they're not hearing from it. I can share multiple voicemails with you, you know, where they go round and around. And so it's taking up a lot of our time, and it has an impact on our township when other townships don't do that work. So other supervisors in the metro area have elected to initiate legal enforcement because it is an impact on their township that those townships are not doing what they're supposed to do.
And again, like we kind of had to pull an arm and a leg to get these contacts, so I can imagine that a lot of these residents, they don't have this information, and I did compile the shareable phone numbers and addresses I do have that I assume is what we're giving to residents, but even then it's not for every township because not every township has replied or provided a number or an email or an address.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sharice? Oh, I'm sorry, James. It took a while.
All right, so I've got a couple of things I want to check out about this. The law, it requires that all townships do this, right? So all of these 30 townships in the county should be going through a process like this, but we're pretty sure they are not, right?
You mean the decennial process?
The decennial process,
Yeah.
right? And the intent of that, I can't say what the intent was, but having spent a lot of time on the county board, my impression was the intent, based on where this came from, was potentially to support the reduction of number of units of government in the state, just because of when it came about and who pushed it. That's just how it seems to me. So I'm going to suggest something fairly radical, which is a recommendation that instead of trying to go down the path of making each of these small townships behave in a certain way, that the state give the county the opportunity to administrate any township that fails to act on their requirements. And so townships that are not functioning, not doing what they need to do, whether it is in this area which we focused on, which was general assistance, or we can't ignore the road responsibilities that go along with the township. If you've worked with on the county level, you know that that's probably the sticking point for a lot of the rural individuals who are concerned about township. Now, I will tell you from my experience, each of those townships have a widely varying capacity and capability to actually deal with the road requirements that they need to manage, and they frequently depend on the county to deal with any road problems that are greater than just rechipping it. If it involves replacing a bridge, they come to the county and ask the county to provide a large part of it. But I think, from what I've seen here, the recommendation should be that this capability needs to be aggregated on the county level for those townships that are not meeting the requirements of their responsibilities. And I say it specifically that way because we do have townships, at least two, that are functioning well in our county, and they don't need that kind of pressure or change. But this would be more efficient government, more service to more people. If this was, I would assume that the county would lean on something like the Regional Planning Commission to implement something like that. That's the direction I would like to see this recommendation come from. And maybe, I don't think anybody is expecting this. Maybe a couple people are expecting this, but we have gone beyond what the vision of this law was. We've taken it a step further. We've said we're not only looking at what we do, but we're looking at how the system works in general in our surrounding area. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because of the slide we don't have, which is the number of people that come to us for these kinds of services because they don't get it from their township, and we have a functioning township, and the city of Champaign has a functioning township. I worry for something like Vermilion County, which probably has a similar issue, if not worse than what we have. And if you think about the state, 102 counties, and how many townships that means in each of those counties, this is something the state needs to address broadly. And it's not just some recommendations about how to pursue bringing lawsuits against individual townships. It has to be about a movement to a functional organization that helps the money that's been collected to help people and pave roads and take care of township level responsibilities get done.
Point of process. I'm just wondering if what I hear is two motions. So I just want to maybe we can move towards some action. I'm action oriented. So the first is we just had this general sanctions for townships that do not provide general assistance. What I'm hearing is that you're proposing that you're recommending that the state give the county the opportunity to administrate or request the counties administrate any township that fails to act on its requirements. That's the first one I've heard. And then the second one is that, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to name that we had 47 referrals. When I went in to create the slide, I realized that we were missing a bunch of data and the right hand wasn't talking to the left. But I had our assistance manager updated it, and I will check with her to make sure. But we have, in 2 years, 47 referrals to townships. I will confirm that, but what I hear is a motion to add a slide that looks at the referrals and that focuses on the data around that.
Yeah, and that's about, why did we go a step beyond what the decennial kind of requirement is, which is to kind of examine yourself and why you exist and make sure you're efficient? We went a step further because we're seeing this data that says this isn't working in the areas around us.
Okay, are there any other technical questions for Ethan or Danielle before we move on to considering approval and amending this? Grace.
We talked about a final version in slides, and could you remind me, is this our last final thing here? Because I also discrepancies in what we had in our packet versus what's on the screen and things we might add. So I'm just trying to understand what final version we're talking about.
So the final version, which should have been in the packet for today, is this version that you're seeing. Like, we haven't changed it since.
I didn't see some of these.
True?
Yeah, no, there's differences, like the budget on GA expenditures.
Yeah, that's the first version.
Graph versus
that's
another
the first version. The second version I sent directly to you all.
Oh, okay. Because this was the one in the packet for today.
Oh, that is perhaps yes.
Okay, so you're saying the one that was presented here on
Yep.
the slides.
And I'd have to look, that may be my fault and not the clerk's fault. I'd have to check because I think I only sent her the lease. But I had sent you all directly the presentation before the rescheduled meeting. So the version that you saw today, we went through all of the slides of it. That is the version. It has some technical corrections. It also visualizes the data in a way that I think is easier to see. Those are really the two changes.
Okay, I did really like the graphs in the other version. I think just was very nice visual.
Chris, or Darcy, go ahead.
So I had two things. One, on the first page of your recommendations, you said the circuit clerk. I deal with these phone calls all the time. It's actually the county clerk, because the county clerk is the one that has the website, that has the financial reports, the elected officials' contact information and address. The circuit clerk is in the courthouse, and they handle the schedule for all court-related things. So the FOIA should come from the county clerk.
Yeah, that's a typo.
Yeah.
We will fix it. Champion County
Totally
Clerk.
fine. I'm not kidding. I get calls about this every single day because I'm the city clerk. There's 3 of us all in Urbana.
I totally missed that, and so I'm glad that you spotlighted it.
The other thing that I was going to say is just like a general caution, specifically relating to presenting of this to the county. When discussing the personnel line items of the budget, as you noted in a previous slide as well, there are other services offered beyond just general assistance and emergency assistance in the umbrella of highway that are under personnel, like the mowing of all of the roadsides to ensure that there's visibility at the cross sections on county roads. That is township paid for through personnel, so that is man hours that are done every year. The plowing of the roads, that is also personnel. So there are other expenditures that fall under personnel that might pop up in these budgets. That does not mean that they are not fully utilizing their funds. They should. But to be clear, there are other reasons that you might see those numbers in some of those townships because they do provide services outside of what the ones that have contiguous boundaries with municipalities do.
Yeah, the personnel numbers we have though are specifically for GA admin.
In that case, they're probably not using
Yeah.
them correctly.
Yeah, all the roadside, we did not pull those numbers. We pulled specifically for GA admin.
Chris, you had a question?
Quickly, the slide that says poverty in Champaign County. Yeah, that one. What's the population of Champaign County? Right. So are you saying that nearly 190,000 people are in poverty?
We pulled this data from the Fred website. I'm not exactly sure.
Population is about 210,000.
Yeah. I think that's based off the national standard. I think technically, yes.
I don't think that can be possible.
That's not correct.
Yeah. You might want to look at
Yeah,
that.
we
I
might
mean,
review that then.
I'm thinking there's a line missing from this. This could be the population, and we're missing the line of where the poverty level is.
Yeah,
Because it may be below 156,000. It's likely below that.
Yeah. I would double check the slide, Ethan.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Grace?
I think that would be important to clarify then Darcy's point about GA personnel budget admin, just because on some of the tables it doesn't specifically say GA on there. So I think that would be helpful to just clarify on the tables there. And I like the recommendations here, and I agree in part with James's point about having a holistic collaboration with the county and the state, but also think that, I think that makes sense for down the road collaboration, but also the current reality of the situation is that the townships are mandated to provide this already, not the county or the state, right? So I support fostering some of the collaboration like your recommendations here, but I also think that it's just missing the current state of reality to say that the townships aren't the ones responsible for doing this when that is the current law and has been. So I support that collaboration, but I don't think it makes sense to right now just decide we're gonna change the law and responsibility and put it on the county rather than the townships at this point.
Mary Alice?
So my perspective is, at the end of the day, we want people who are qualified to get this kind of service and to be able to access the funds, right? So that's kind of the purpose of GA. This is a state law. We want people who need access to those funds to be able to get that. So with that in mind, rather than going to all these townships and fighting them, I actually like James's idea because it meets the goal, right? The goal is to serve the population. And if it can be done countywide, then whatever the rules are, you don't do it for 2 years, the county gets all the money, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. But I think it's something that we should consider.
James?
I will point out that my suggestion is not unlike what happens with assessment, because if a township fails to do assessment, the county steps in and assists with that, because that's an obligation. It's a requirement to get that done, or else we don't know how to collect money to run local government. So it's not unprecedented for the county to take care of things like road situations that are beyond what a township can do, assessment situations that are beyond what a township can do. It fits the model. It's not uncommon. I heard this conversation a lot when I was on the county board, for 6 years, and people raised the question of how is township government functioning in its current state?
Okay, at this, pardon? Darcy?
I agree wholeheartedly with the goal of having the money allocated for general assistance being utilized by those who need it everywhere. There is currently pending legislation at the state level, and I apologize that I don't have the number or the memory of whether it's in the House or the Senate at this time, but it was brought to our attention in the legislative update at our last quarterly seminar of the Municipal Clerks of Illinois that there is an attempt to effectively have counties dissolve townships, absorb the funds, and apply the services at a county level. My concern with that is I do not know if they paint it with a broad brush that there will be exceptions made for localized management to continue stuff like Cunningham Township and City of Champaign Township with individual official and an individual administration, if that makes sense. I'm concerned that it'll just be one centralized thing for the entire county and that there will be no exceptions made even for those townships who are currently following the law and operating as intended and beyond. So that is my one concern with that, and I will also say that it is already somewhere in the legislature.
Jaya?
Yeah, I appreciate this conversation. I want to come back to the recommendations, and I will say too that I want to be mindful of our role as the township board, and I'm personally not sure if I feel comfortable making a recommendation related to that piece because I do have concerns about what it might mean for our township if something that broad were to happen. I think the recommendation for townships that are unable or unwilling to comply should seek contract these services with other townships with capacity, skills, and interests. I think we could amend that to say with other townships or qualified providers. Like we could wordsmith it a little bit because I hear what's being said of, if they're not going to do it, somebody needs to, right? So whether that's forcing it through fines, whether that's someone taking over. Making a recommendation to say like, hey, let's help move the needle. But I think at least for myself, I don't know, I've never served on the county board. We're not acting as the county board. I have a little bit of discomfort with us saying, hey, this is something the county should do because we have a model what it should look like, right? And I think there are a number of different ways that the needle could be moved to make it so more counties are doing what they should be doing. But at least without more information, I don't personally feel comfortable making a recommendation that the county should take over those responsibilities. I think this is an incredible piece of information, and kudos to you for all your work on it. Danielle, for all your support, everyone who was part of the committee for working on this. And I can see where someone would say, well, how does this fit into the scope of this decennial committee? But again, it does impact us when we're trying to say, yeah, we don't know where to tell you to go, right? Like if you can't even, and that's part of being an elected official is your address is public information. This is great information. And like I said, I think as we review the recommendations, I just want to be mindful of what does it mean to situate it in our role as the Cunningham Township Board?
Just to move things along, are there any recommendations that you don't want to see on the slide? Are you okay with the recommendations as written, other than the one that you might want to add?
I think probably do a straw poll on any ones that we want to add. I did want to, I agree with some of Jaya's points there. I think that they've already covered that with contract services for townships that can't meet it. And I would recommend maybe some broad language about the county clerk or board work to ensure GA access throughout the county and maybe not have such a specific kind of takeover recommendation, but just work to ensure that access. And I think we do need to do probably a straw poll because we've got different opinions on different recommendations.
Jaya?
Yeah, and like I said, I just personally would advocate for the one that I mentioned, maybe expanding out the options so that it doesn't just have to be another township taking it over because we also don't know the capacity of other townships to take it over. And, if it was something like RPC had the ability to do so, I don't want to completely close that off. So that would be my one recommendation, but.
Point of process.
A process question, actually.
So just trying to understand, Jaya, are you recommending that the third bullet point that's right there, say townships unable or willing, or it should say unwilling, to comply should seek to contract these services with other townships, the county, or registered nonprofits.
I think that would be
Okay.
appropriate.
So I just
yes.
wanted to
Yeah.
understand that was
Yeah.
the recommendation, and I would support that.
That satisfy yours, James?
Yeah,
language.
that's
Okay,
a step in
thumbs up on
the
that one?
right direction.
Okay. All right.
Just point of information, what's our deadline?
End of June.
Do you feel like you want to bring this back in June for final approval? With the corrections that are made? What I've written down is the poverty rate slide needs to be corrected. The board wants to add the slide regarding the number of referrals that the Cunningham Township is making. You're changing Champaign Circuit Clerk to Champaign County Clerk, and you're adding the language to that third bullet point. Are there any other suggested changes? Mary Alice?
It's not necessarily a suggested change, but we need the current version at least
Yes.
posted on our website.
Okay. Okay, so with these updates, and then put the current version on our website, and then bring this back to the June town board meeting?
That's totally fine.
And meet
I
again.
love talking about townships.
And meet again as the decennial committee within the town board meeting.
I do have
that make sense?
one question that I just want, just for clarification, and you probably already answered it. So every township within Champaign County is supposed to be doing what we're doing right now.
Correct.
However, we're finding that not every township is doing this because of either lack of staff or lack of funds or both or something to that effect. I'm just trying to understand.
You know, as my friend Chris Evans would say, don't go to motive. I mean, I don't really know what the motive is. We can only report on what they report on. And I think that it's, you know, if you dive deep, we could make hypotheses. Like in some cases, they don't bring in a tax levy. Is that even legal? In some cases, Colfax has 169 folks. Is there someone who qualifies for GA? According to statistics, there'd be at least one. But you know, who knows? Maybe Colfax doesn't have that. So I think that there are just a lot of different reasons. I think there's a lot of inertia around townships, and people inherit what the last person did, and they just carry that on, and they may not even necessarily be aware of or pay attention to what the rules are around general assistance because there isn't an enforcement mechanism that's really clear to them. So I think there could be a lot of different reasons. My rule of thumb is assume best intentions, and then always and get accurate information and make smart recommendations. And that's where I think we're at.
Okie dokie. I just want to get some understanding as to if we are, when we're making recommendations, are we making recommendations because we're the county seat? Are we, you know, do we even have that, do we even have that authority, you know what I mean? To say, oh, well, we recommend that these other townships do this. That's what.
I think James spoke to this, and this is why I think we should include the slide, is if we have 47 referrals in 2 years, most of which involve multiple communications, because they're referred and they come back and they're referred and come back. I can't exactly quantify how much staff time that takes, but I would say a lot. And so I think that's our standing, is that if other folks aren't doing their job, then it ends up being coming back to us. And I would specifically call out Urbana Township. Urbana Township is most of what you'll see is Urbana Township referrals, because they may have an Urbana address and they come to us and then we refer out. It's been very, very difficult to refer folks to Urbana Township, but it's, you know, there have been other townships.
I'm going to be honest, up until I really saw this list and I saw Urbana Township and I said, wait, is Urbana and Cunningham the same thing? And no, they're not. So maybe a lot of people don't even
It's confusing.
recognize that because that can be confusing.
Yeah, I think onto your point, the only conclusion I would draw, like that I would firmly support, is that regardless of if they're doing their services, they are hard to reach to, all these townships. And if it's hard for someone, me getting paid to dedicate hours to find them, I'm sure for the average person, it's not easy to contact them.
Okay, thank you.
And that hasn't changed over the last 30, 40 years.
Well, I think we have a plan of action now going forward. Grace, one last question.
Yeah, last thing in the recommendations was, I don't know if others agree, but I do like some of the graphical depictions of the GA balance and things, even maybe as appendices. I think that if there's other ways to show the data, I think a table and graph can be helpful.
Sure, we can bring some of those back. So we'll bring one back. I think the mayor did a good job of making a list. I made sure that our lists match. We'll ask Michelle to attend. She's with the county executive's office, so it'd be helpful to have her present. And we will make sure that the final is in the packet. And my apologies for oversight with that.
Jan?
Yeah, I apologize. It's not exactly a perfect time, but I just want to recognize like both of the graduate students who spoke tonight coming after you've already got your degree. Like that's incredible. Not only your work, but to continue to show up to help our community be better. I just really am grateful for that. So congrats, and also thank you for sticking around, and sorry we're pushing it to June.
No, thank you. It's fine. This had been a lot of my year, so I like sharing it.
Thank you. Okay, so we will adjourn this meeting of the Decennial Committee. And then I will adjourn the meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you for including me in this.